Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle, and tonight we're going to be going over my top 100 for PPR rankings. Now, we're going to do this like on the fly as we go. It's going to be kind of muddy and preliminary, but the goal is to kind of just get something down in some form of rankings, and then from there we're going to continue to tweak these throughout the rest of the summer. So we're kind of just going to figure out our tiers and where guys are going to be going, what rounds we're liking certain players in, and we'll just kind of fill this out. So on the Fantasy Fellowship.com. I do have my 2021 draft kit available. It is $15 for the month of June. Same price for July. It's just a one-time payment. It's not like a monthly thing or anything, just a one-time payment. But you do get access to my projections document, which we're looking at here. And I do have a bunch of tabs on the bottom here that all have the rankings, the quarterback rankings, PPR, half PPR, whatever scoring format you need. It's all there. But for today, we're gonna be going through the flex rankings, and then when it does come time for me to put a quarterback in there, we'll flip to the quarterback rankings and insert them. But you can see this is the column that we're going to be filling out today. We're gonna basically just do like a little mock draft of the top 100 players. So we're gonna fill this column out, and let's just get into it. I think the first overall pick, if you want to get cute, you can do something different, whether that's Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara. I have seen Derrick Henry that high, but I tend not to do that. And currently right now, I guess with my projections, I do have them filtered by total PPR points. And I just want to show you guys a cool nugget here. If actually we go to, let me fire up my ESPN rankings from last year, or I guess how they finished. And I do play, my most important league is on ESPN. We're just that's basketball. Let me click onto the football league here. And then I just want to show you guys how last year's standings look very interesting. Something that I noticed earlier today when I was looking at them. So typically, like in our drafts, like we're just going to get a ton of running backs in the first round, and for good reason. But looking at the 2020 numbers from last year, and if I hit fantasy points here, let's filter by flex. So this eliminates quarterback, and it puts us in with all of the tight ends, wide receivers, and running backs. Now look at Alvin Kamara was the number one player, Devontae Adams, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry. So 3 of the top 4 are running backs. But then look at this. You get Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Travis Kelsey, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Darren Waller, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. And then we get our next running back, David Montgomery. So this got me thinking, like, look at all the receivers here that technically, finish better than a lot of the running backs, whether it's Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor. There's a lot more receivers towards the top of the list. And if you look at my projections here, we do have a nice big block of receivers here that I really, really like. So we're going to get this draft started. I think just for good measure, we're going to put Christian McCaffrey here at the number 1 spot. And if you wanted to, I get it. You could, if you really like Dalvin Cook, you really like Alvin Kamara, I got no problem with that. Do what you got to do. But for me, I'm going to continue here just walking down my rankings. I think Dalvin Cook is in for a really big season. He had a really nice year last year, too, and he played a lot of games as well. Again, we look at this. He was the number 3 overall player in terms of fantasy, number 2 running back. He played so well last season. And I don't think he missed one game against Atlanta. And every single game over double digits, only one game here, 10 points. That's fine. You're going to have a bad game every now and then. But, man, almost every other week was a 20-point game, a couple boom games here in a row. So I love Dalvin Cook as the number 2 pick. And then let's just keep it moving. I'm going to go Alvin Kumar, number 3. And I wonder if I should make this a little bit bigger for you guys to read. Let me just can I do another zoomage? All right. Hopefully that's good enough for you guys to see what we're working with here. I'm actually going to do maybe one more zoom. There, you can still see the PPR rankings. Okay, so we got our top 3 running backs in here. I should put running back. And now we get to the 4th overall spot, which it does feel really rich to get a wide receiver, Stephon Diggs, Adams, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, Aj Brown. Probably not going to do that. Now, you could take Derrick Henry here. I think the next logical move is Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry. For me, it's kind of a no-brainer. I'm going to go Derrick Henry, number 4 overall. And it's just that offense in Tennessee is going to be so fun to watch. Tannehill with Julio and A.J. Brown now. You have to worry about Derrick Henry. It's going to be a very tough offense to stop. Whereas the New York Giants offense, who knows what we're going to get? We've seen Saquon Barkley get injured numerous times throughout his career so far. So I think he's going to slide down here to the 5th overall spot. And if you sit at the number 5 spot and you see these 4 running backs all go off the board, I'm not going to blame you if you wanted to kind of get away from the Giants' offense. I do think Saquon Barkley's in for a really nice season, but I totally get it if you wanted to maybe pivot and potentially think about looking at the next best running back, whether that's Nick Chubb. I think it's a little rich for Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor. So we're looking at this tier of running backs down here, which excites me. I think there are some really good options of this group here. But for now, I'm going to continue to leave Saquon Barkley in here. Let me just kind of highlight this too so we can make this stick out a little bit more. Went too far down. Yeah, we're just going to highlight the top 12. That'll be the first round here. So let me make that like an orangey color here. So here we are. We're working on the first round. The first 5 picks are all running backs. And now that we've kind of gotten rid of some of these guys, I'm just going to continue to fill these guys out in red that we have selected so far. Okay, so you're at the number 6 spot. Do you think about a wide receiver? We got, this huge block of receivers up here. I think Calvin Ridley should be included in that block as well. But maybe think about Travis Kelsey. I don't know. Maybe Nick Chubb is the pick here. I do like Nick Chubb if you want running back. I think that one makes a lot of sense for me. Let me just delete that column. It's kind of messing it up. Actually, that was kind of nice to see. Let's just make that, we'll leave that. But anyways, we're through the first 5 picks. We got 5 running backs. If you're at the number 6 spot, I think you got to think about Nick Chubb, maybe Jonathan Taylor, Ezekiel Elliott. Those are probably the next 3, running backs that do make sense here. Let me highlight these guys here. So if you want to run back, that's kind of where I'm thinking. But if you want receiver, I could see it. I think for me though, I'm gonna put Nick Chubb up here at the 6th position because I'm expecting a really good year for the Browns. I'm feeling the Nick Chubb this season. So we're gonna put Nick Chubb at 6. 6 straight running backs off the board. Do we go Jonathan Taylor, Ezekiel Elliott? I think we do. I think we're going to continue to put a value on these running backs in the first round because I do think they start to fall off. And I do have questions with some of the guys, whether it's Aaron Jones or Austin Eckler. But I do think Ezekiel Elliott and Jonathan Taylor are locked into really good positions this year. So I'm going to go ahead and put Ezekiel Elliott here at number 7. And at number 8, we'll put Jonathan Taylor. So I'm just going to get rid of the red here for Taylor. And we will get, where did he go? Ezekiel Elliott. So both these guys just offer a tremendous amount of safety. That's what I love about Nick Chubb, Ezekiel Elliott, and Jonathan Taylor. Like, these are all on really, really good teams. We'll see if the Cowboys are much better on defense this year, but I just think Ezekiel Elliott, as bad of a season as he had last year, where did he finish? I mean, the man was still a top 10 running back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 9th running back last season. And at this point, you're getting him as the 7th running back off the board on a team that should be much better. I feel really good about getting Ezekiel Elliott on my team. Just to show you guys his numbers with Dak Prescott last season. I mean, look at the first 5 games. These first 5 games are the games that Dak played in. And you get 4 games over 20 points from Zeke, and his worst game was 17.8. 2 touchdown game, and then a total of, he scored 6 touchdowns in 5 games with Dak Prescott. I think people are kind of sleeping on Zeke, so don't fade Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's a top 8 pick, and Jonathan Taylor, of course, you guys know his game. I think that's a good spot for him. So now that we've kind of got a good run of running backs out of the board here, and now we're looking at best running back is Aaron Jones on my board, or Austin Eckler. I think I'm going to start to pivot here, and this is where you start to think about at the 10 spot here. I think this is where you start to think about your tight end, your wide receiver. If you wanted to take Aaron Jones, I have no problem with that. I like Austin Eckler as well. We go further down the board: Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, Antonio Gibson. But for now, what I think we're going to do is we're looking at Diggs, Tyreek Hill. Those are probably the top 2 receivers off the board. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in. Let's lock in Tyreek Hill. I have no problem wanting to lock in Tyreek Hill over Stephon Diggs. I think they're kind of, they're vice versa. You can put either one in there if you have the 9 spot. But I do think it makes sense to maybe get, to me, those are the top 2 guys. And just with the situation with Aaron Rodgers, we don't know what's going to happen. I could see Davante Adams slipping into the second round. But to me, Diggs and Hill, those are the clear top two options at wide receiver this season. And now you have a question. Do you like DK Metcalf? Do you like AJ Brown? Do you like Calvin Ridley? Do you like Travis Kelsey? And then Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler are still chilling here. So what I'm going to do is after we got the top two receivers off of the board, I'm going to go ahead and hit the next tier, and that's going to be Travis Kelsey. I just think he offers so much upside as your tight end number one. And then let me show you guys here too. If we go to the tight end ranking or the tight end finishes from last season, Travis Kelsey, he was a clear almost, what is this? I can't do math right now. Almost 30 points over Darren Waller. He averages basically 3 more points per game, and then there's a massive drop-off from those two. So Kittle's going to enter. George Kittle's going to come back and be that number 3 tight end this year, but you're getting 3 points per game on the next best tight end. So it's just that offense is so much fun. So all of a sudden you're looking at a guy here that makes a lot of sense. I almost wonder if it's easier for me to just kind of delete these names instead of seeing all this stuff. I think that's easier to see instead of me having to highlight all these red. That's a lot of color going on, right? And then I think I'm going to just get rid of all the color here in the positions tab. We'll just make that go away. Okay, so maybe that's a little bit more clear. Okay, so we still have Davante Adams, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Justin Jefferson. I think that's kind of the clear tier for me at the wide receiver position. I could maybe argue Michael Thomas belongs in there too. But again, they got some questions at quarterback. We'll get to that when we get to it. But you're sitting here at the 12 spot, and you got Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler both available. And as much as I like DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, I think at the 12 spot, you have to make a decision on one of these running backs. Now, you could take both Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler. I'm a big fan of both guys. But for me, I'm going to go ahead in here and take Aaron Jones. And then we come back to basically we're at the beginning of the second round right here. And then here, I'm going to highlight this one. We'll make that one yellow. Maybe not yellow. We'll go with like a light color. That was a light blue look. Okay, so that's going to be our second round. So you just got number 12, Aaron Jones. I think you got to come back with a wide receiver, whether it's DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's been getting a ton of hype lately. He just had some surgery on his foot. It might have been his toe. So I'm going to go ahead here and think the decision is between DK Metcalf and AJ Brown. Now, I just want to show you guys real quick with my projections. Look at how close I have these wide receivers here. And this is kind of the tier I'm talking about. I want one of these. If you can get one of these top 6 wide receivers, pending Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers, Diggs, Adams, Hill, Metcalf, Ridley, or AJ Brown, I think that's a really good top 5 bet on any of those guys finishing the top 5 this season. And they're separated by a mere 8 fantasy points in my projections. So you could legit make a case: Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 1, DK Metcalf, wide receiver 1, AJ Brown. Now that he got dinged with Julio, I can kind of maybe see that being a little troublesome. And I'm interested in all those guys at the position there. So what we're going to do here is I think we're just going to make a little run here of these guys. I do think Austin Eckler could be here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to group Austin Eckler because I think he's the last of the RB1s that are for sure. So we're going to move Austin Eckler off the board. And then basically I'm just going to fill in all these receivers. I think round 2 is it's the stud wide receiver round. So what I'm going to do, let's just continue to fill this out. And I'm not really thinking too much here. I'm kind of just putting these guys in the order that I see on my chart right now. And it's basically, if you like one guy more than the other, I have no problem with you taking one guy or the other. So we just got 1, 2, 3, 4. Where did Hopkins go? And notice how I'm not thinking about quarterbacks yet. So right now we just had 5 wide receivers go off the board. I do think you could maybe start to question whether it's Justin Jefferson, Michael Thomas, or we get some of these running backs back in the mix, whether that's Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon's probably the next best running back, but again, there's some questions with his health. I think that team's going to throw the ball a lot. So I'm going to continue to just weed out some of these wide receivers here. And I just think, man, if you're sitting here in that early to middle second round, just hammer wide receivers. And then I'm going to show you guys some things with Michael Thomas. I think we got to remember just how good Michael Thomas was. So let's go ahead and look here. And just keep in mind, he played a handful of games with Taysom Hill last season. But once he got back on the field, this is what he did. He didn't score a single touchdown in any of these games with Taysom Hill, but 16 points, 19, a 9, a 19, a 4, and a 10. But this is kind of looking like Michael Thomas's floor again, these 16s, these 19s. And keep in mind, these are without touchdowns. So I really don't know if it matters who his quarterback is. If it is Jameis Winston, he's just going to get pummeled with targets. So don't be shy about Michael Thomas in the second round. If you can get him at the end of the turn here, I think that's really good value too. But all of a sudden, we're looking at maybe we put a little tier break in here. I'm going to get maybe we throw Joe Mixon in here. I'm just going to because remember when we were looking at the wide receivers and I said I kind of like these top 6 receivers the most. I think the next best group would be this Hopkins, Jefferson, Michael Thomas. I could group DeAndre Hopkins in with those elite guys at the top, and maybe I'll do that here. Let's just kind of do that. Put Hopkins there, and then I'm going to put Joe Mixon right kind of here in the middle by himself. I think he's kind of on an island because you can maybe wait for a little bit of the other running backs. So now we're kind of at the end of the second round. That's when you start thinking about Darren Waller. You start thinking about George Kittle. I still think now that we've reached the Amari Cooper and the Allen Robinson, Robert Woods, these guys are all more round 3 players for my liking. And then we're starting to look at Najee Harris, Antonio Gibson. Those are probably the next best running backs. So I think we're going to hammer out those guys right now. We'll put the running backs in there with the next best one. That's Najee Harris, RB Antonio Gibson, RB Cam Akers. Now, I'm kind of lower than most people on my Cam Akers numbers, but that's just because there's so many other good running backs here. I think if you wanted to take Cam Akers up with Joe Mixon, I really don't have a problem with that. Really, if you liked any of these guys before some of these receivers, I don't have a problem with it. But I would definitely recommend looking at these receivers a little bit more closely before landing a running back here. So all of a sudden, we got a handful of running backs that we like: Najee Harris, Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers. These to me are Najee Harris has a really good chance of being a running back 1 this year if everything lines up and he gets the touches and he stays healthy. But there's still some questions. He's still a rookie. We're still curious about the Steelers' offensive line. Antonio Gibson's everything's sounding really, really good right now. So to me, I think Gibson's my RB13 and Akers is my RB14. Those guys both look the best as your running back 2. But they can be running back 1s this season. So that's where we're going to leave them at the end of the second. So if you're drafting in the top 3, you get McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara. You should love getting the idea of getting Harris, Gibson, or Akers as my running back 2, even Mixon for that matter. That should excite us. So that's feeling really good now. We are through 2 rounds. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the next round here being the 3rd round. Go back to orange. And now we're looking at Waller, Kittle, a huge run of wide receivers. And then you got Chris Carson, J.K. Dobbins, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders. I think those are probably the next logical picks. And what I'm going to do here is let's get the tight ends off the board. Darren Waller and tight end George Kittle. I really don't have a preference as to which one you guys want to pick first. I just think Darren Waller has less competition for targets. George Kittle, he's got a really good Brandon Ayuk and really good Deebo Samuel to compete for with targets. And a team that also really wants to run the ball first and foremost. So let's get the tight ends off the board at the beginning of the 3rd round. If you get them guys anywhere in the 3rd round, that's a really good pick. And we can probably start to think about quarterbacks now, but I kind of want to get rid of some of these running backs because we're just seeing a ton of wide receivers start to stack up here in the 3rd round, and we do have some running backs down the board here. J.K. Dobbins, Chris Carson, you got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, even DeAndre Swift. I think that's what we're going to do. We're just going to pencil in this massive block of running backs, and that starts with I'm going to put J.K. Dobbins ahead of Carson. Running back. Let me get rid of these guys. And you got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. RB Miles Sanders, Philadelphia. And then I'm going to put in DeAndre Swift up here too. RBD. Oh, I can't do that right. Andre Swift. Okay. So we just had a huge run of running backs. 5 straight running backs go in the 3rd round. That's J.K. Dobbins, Chris Carson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift. I'm a big fan of all these guys. They all have questions, and all of them look best as your running back too. If I show you guys my running back rankings real quick, we're looking at this group. So here was the Gibson and the Akers at the 13-14 spot, and then I have this big block of those guys that we just looked at. I think Mike Davis is going to be in for a good season too, guys. But these guys are all top 20 running backs. I feel really safe in saying that. They look best as your running back too. I'm not if you're in the middle of the 3rd, take one of them. You know, whoever is available, snag one of these guys. I think you can feel pretty good about them being a running back 2 for you this season. I get it, though. If you want one of these wide receivers that we kind of had a huge run on, we can look to do that. But all of a sudden, we're left with Mike Davis, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery. And then you look at the receivers. I just got a ton of wide receivers available here. So what we're going to do, now that we got Amari Cooper, Robert Woods, Allen Robinson, Lockett Kupp, Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, I'm really not comfortable taking a quarterback yet with all these really good receivers on the board. So basically everybody here, I think we're just going to put in a massive run in the 3rd and 4th round. So let me start with, let me just kind of drag this. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 wide receivers. So that's 5. Here's 6 more. 6 more wide receivers, and then I'm going to just set up the highlight for the 4th round. If you guys are enjoying the video, don't forget to like the video. Leave me a comment how we're doing so far. I'll kind of recap once we get to the end of the 4th round. I'm just going to plug in all these wide receivers here that I think are worth a shot in the 3rd and 4th rounds. Amari Cooper, Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson setting up really nicely with Justin Fields right now. It sounds like Fields is just doing everything the right way, and he's having he had a really good OTA and training camp this past week, and he might be the opening starter right away for Chicago. So keep an eye on him. So I'll cover these guys in a second. And this is why I kind of like doing this, because it's kind of instead of big tier. Like if you like a handful of these guys, get your guys. You know, don't really think about it too much. But we're looking at a huge group of wide receivers. You got Amari Cooper, the wide receiver 1 for Dallas. Allen Robinson, wide receiver 1 in Chicago. Robert Woods, Tyler Lockett, Cooper Kupp. I think both those guys are some of the most underrated wide receivers in the league right now. With Matt Stafford joining the LA Rams, look for Woods and Kupp to just eat this season. And Tyler Lockett's still criminally underrated as well. You can get him as a wide receiver 2 these days, and he's going to be a low-end wide receiver 1 for you potentially. But then in the 4th round, you got Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb, Deontay Johnson, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans. Just a monster list of wide receivers here that I really, really like. And at this point, this is where it gets a little interesting, because you're looking at whether it's Jamar Chase, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Juju. We're starting to get questions. I think Julio Jones gets in the conversation soon. He's gonna, to me, he kind of belongs in this Mike Evans, Chris Godwin tier too, because he's going to be kind of the second fiddle there. So maybe I pull up some more wide receivers here. Let's pull up Julio Jones in the 4th round, number 43 overall. Adam Thielen, still a little bit rich for me. I can start to see some of these running backs. Let's do some of these running backs right now, and that's going to be, I think Mike Davis is going to be a really good season. Mike Davis, RB Josh Jacobs. Now, Jacobs is interesting because we know he's not a PPR guy. He's not going to catch a ton of passes. His work was limited last year, but he was able to have a better season than he did his rookie year in that department in terms of receiving the ball. But he was RB8 last season, and you look at his numbers, like the way he ended the season, a 20, a 6, a 20, a 10, a 5. He's got a really high floor. Like you see the 9, the 6, the 5, and the 6. So only 4 games below double digits, a couple 10s in there. But I just think plugging Josh Jacobs in the 4th round as your running back 2 or number 3 running back, I just don't see the volume going away. I know they got Kenyon Drake. He's probably going to be more utilized as a wide receiver. you're probably not going to see Josh Jacobs get this 31 carries anymore. It's probably going to be capped somewhere in that 20 to 25 range. So I really don't see Kenyon Drake eating too much into Josh Jacobs' potential this season. So that's why I'm going to leave him there. And then we're going to just, let's whip in some quarterbacks. Let me go to my quarterback rankings. The top 3 guys, I'm just going to put in a block: Mahomes, Murray, Josh Allen. I think at the end of the 4th is when you can start to think about some of these guys. So Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen. Okay, so we're through 4 rounds. I'll kind of just do a recap for you guys looking at this. And again, I'm probably going to do this video once a month. It's going kind of long already. It's going to be a nice long podcast if you want to listen to it. But just a ton of running backs to start off the draft. Again, you can see them all there. Got a couple of receivers. Tyreek Hill and Diggs were the first-round pick. Travis Kelsey, and then Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler I like at the back of the first in the early, I guess, 201. And then you come back with this run of wide receivers. I love all these guys: Adams, Metcalf, Ridley, AJB, and DeAndre Hopkins. Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers. You can kind of take them wherever you want. I think as long as after these wide receivers are gone, that's when I would do it. Mixon, Justin Jefferson, and Michael Thomas somewhere at the end of the second. I can see Darren Waller, George Kittle, just lovely like 3rd-round picks. If you get the chance and you want an elite tight end, that's where you're gonna have to grab them. And then you got a huge little a mini run of running backs. That's Dobbins, Carson, Clyde Edwards, Miles Sanders, and DeAndre Swift. And then we just have this guys at the end of the 3rd and throughout the 4th round, just continue to slay wide receivers. I think it's going to be a really good round for wide receivers this season. Wait for Mike Davis and Josh Jacobs in the 4th round, and then you can start to think about the elite quarterbacks at the end of the 4th round. And I think that covered everybody here. So we're roughly halfway through the video. We're going to start to pick up the pace just a little bit. I do think there is a drop-off in running backs. David Montgomery is the last of the guys here that I have available that's ranked highly. Myles Gaskin's here, and then James Conner is actually my next one. Chase Edmonds, Ronald Jones. So I think what we're going to do is let's go ahead and get David Montgomery off the board. And I'm not a huge David Montgomery fan. He did perform really well last season, but he had a lot of things working in his favor. Tariq Cohen got injured in the 2nd game of the season, and it just provided him a massive workload in the passing game. They also signed Damien Williams this season. I know the team's going to be a lot better, but I'm just a little bit worried about the schedule and just the addition of a couple running backs in the volume. So I still think he's a running back too, just not a guy I'm trying to reach for, if you know what I'm saying. So we just got the running backs off the board there, and then we're probably not going to draft a running back for a while here. So let's go ahead and we'll highlight that orange. Just let me set this up real quick because I think we're going to start to fly through some of these rather quickly now that some tiers are being established. And don't forget, if you guys like this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you are new. We're going to be pumping out videos all summer now, now that we got OTAs are behind us, and we're going to be headed to training camp in a month. So it's a lot of fun in the fantasy football research world right now. Okay, so we got our guys. Let's go ahead and take a look. Now, I'm lower on some of the tight ends here, TJ Hawkinson and Kyle Pitts. I'm not lower on them, but when you just look at the rankings as a whole, that's when it starts to get a little there's a lot of wide receivers here, guys. There's just so many wide receivers. So if you want TJ Hawkinson, Kyle Pitts, Logan Thomas, Mark Andrews, I think we're probably gonna we can maybe reach for them in the 5th round. I think if you want Kyle Pitts, you probably have to take him like right now. So let's go ahead and get Kyle Pitts and Hawkinson off the board here in the 5th round. Kyle Pitts is just set up for a massive workload this season. And same with TJ Hawkinson. He's going to be the leading receiver for Jared Goff. Not a lot of competition for him. So that gets the receivers off the board, or the tight ends off the board. And let's just kind of clean up some of these wide receivers. So I think Jamar Chase, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, really good wide receiver values here. Same with Juju Smith-Schuster, Adam Thielen, Cortland Sutton, Deebo Samuel, Michael Gallup, Tyler Boyd, DJ Chark. I'm probably just going to make a massive block of running backs here. So let's continue to do this. We're looking at wide receiver Jamar Chase, wide receiver Robbie Anderson. And I'm interested to see what the Panthers look like with Sam Darnold. I think with Curtis Samuel being off the team, that's going to maybe boost Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore just a little bit. Both guys were kind of in that, they're all the Carolina guys were top 30 wide receivers last season, so I still feel really good about Robbie and DJ. But get them as your wide receiver 3 if you can. If you get a lot of running backs early, they can be a 2 for you. So I do like that. Juju Smith-Schuster, I have no problem with him being my wide receiver 3 this season. And then you just if you got this huge run of wide receivers here, let me dig a little bit for some running backs. So my next best running backs: James Conner, Chase Edmonds, Ronald Jones, James Robinson, Kareem Hunt, Raheem Hines, Melvin Gordon, Travis Etienne. So I'm gonna push those running backs down even farther. Let's continue to snag receivers off the board here, and then we'll get to a point where we have a tier break, and maybe we start plugging in some more quarterbacks. Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's going to be an interesting guy if he can, if anything happens with their quarterback situation. Michael Gallup, and then we can just continue. I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of these receivers that I have highlighted here, and then we'll take a wide receiver break essentially. Michael Gallup, people like really underrating him this season based on what he did last year with Andy Dalton. He's still going to be over 100 targets this season. He's going to be a wide receiver 3 for us. He's going to be a little bit more up and down, I think, but I still think it's going to be a pretty good season for him. Okay, so we just blazed through the 5th round. I think that's a wide receiver round for me, guys. Grab one of these guys as your wide receiver 3s. I think that's the best value. We basically burned up all the running backs, the top 20. I think we're at the top 24 running backs. I prefer to wait. If I can get some of these receivers, I will definitely take those guys over the running backs that we were just looking at. Let's go pop over to my quarterback rankings. From here, like Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, that's probably the next tier. So Wilson, Prescott, and Lamar Jackson. Let's go ahead and group those guys here. QB Russell Wilson. QB, what's his name? No, Dak Prescott. And QB Lamar Jackson. Okay, so as you get into the 6th round, start to look at if Wilson, Prescott, Lamar Jackson are all hanging around. I think that's great value there. We went heavy on the wide receivers here for a good run here. I think we might have to pivot towards the running backs. So I'm going to start pulling up some of the running backs into the 6th round here. So James Conner, guys, I know he left a bad taste in our mouths last year, but Kenyon Drake is gone. That position, Kenyon Drake finished, where was he? These are, where was Kenyon Drake? Let me filter by ranking here. So in the Arizona Cardinals offense, Kenyon Drake was running back 16 last year. And he had 9 goal line touchdowns. If you want to check out theFantasyFellowship.com, again, I have a 2021 draft kit. It's only $15, one-time payment, but there's a lot of cool stuff in here. And if you scroll down far enough, you're going to find the red zone rushing stats. Just look at Kenyon Drake up here. Inside the 5 last year, he had 21 carries and 9 touchdowns. That was tied for the most with Cam Newton rushing touchdowns and Alvin Kamara. So a ton of opportunity within the red zone for the Cardinals. You look at inside the 10, Kenyon Drake had 35 carries. He had all 9 of his touchdowns there. And you go inside the 20, Kenyon Drake still 56 carries and 9 touchdowns. So when they get inside the 5-yard line, James Conner is going to be that guy getting a touchdown. So if you're questionable on that one, just think about it a little bit. James Conner, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be the goal line back in Arizona. And then it just so happens to be that I also have Chase Edmonds here as the next best running back. We got running back Ronald Jones. Let's see. There's James Robinson. So we're just going to continue flying off these running backs. Running back James Robinson. There's Kareem Hunt. I think Hunt takes a little bit of a backseat this season with a healthy Nick Chubb. And a team that they should be winning more this year, which makes me think that they're not going to be, having to pass to the running back there as much. Do I really have Nyheim Hines up here that high? Nyheim Hines, what are you doing here? Nyheim Hines, 29th overall. Interesting. Maybe we take a running back tier here. If you're still waiting for me to talk about Melvin Gordon or Travis Etienne, it might be a little bit yet there. I'm not super excited about Etienne, Leonard Fournette this season. These guys are all running back threes at this point, and this is where it gets a little dicey with Connor, Edmonds, Jones, Robinson, Kareem Hunt. I think you could legit take any of these wide receivers that I have over them. So what I think I'm going to do is we're going to get back to the wide receivers. There's some tight ends here. I do have Logan Thomas and Mark Andrews kind of low. Maybe we just put those guys out there because I think there is a kind of a tight end break coming up. But let's hammer out some of these wide receivers. Antonio Brown, receiver Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver Curtis Samuel. We got wide receiver Laviska Shenault's one of my favorite receivers so far. Sounds like he's been having a very, very good training camp. There's Mike Williams. And if I seem low on Chase Claypool, I am low. There's so many mouths to feed. And he did kind of fall off towards the end of last season. So I have him as a 7th round pick this season. And then here we're looking at I'm just going to finish this with Odell Beckham. And we'll call Kenny Golladay in there too because he's kind of a trip this year with the Giants offense. But okay, and then we'll bang out these tight ends. Logan Thomas, tight end, Marker Andrews, tight end, Dallas Goedert. So if you want a tight end in the middle rounds, I'm all for Logan Thomas, Mark Andrews, probably going to go higher. Dallas Goedert if he falls. What did I just delete there by accident? Thomas and Andrews and Goddard. So now we're getting to the point now, middle of the 7th, almost the 8th round. Basically, we just start to get our guys. And I do think, let me type in Goddard. I do think once it gets to this point, you should be looking for high upside guys on your bench. And that's where a lot of these running backs come in. We get back here to Nyheim Hines. I'm looking at Melvin Gordon. I'm looking at, let me get Nyheim Hines off the board. Let's get Melvin off the board. And let's get ETN. RB Leonard Fournette. So we just got ETN and Leonard Fournette off the board. Raheem Moster, the next pick here. I'm gonna just bang these guys out. We got Raheem Mostert and running back Damian Harris. So there's a lot of running backs that I like late. You can get Raheem Mostert to start the season, Damian Harris, Michael Carter, Zach Moss. This is where we start to get a little dicey. I'm pretty low on David Johnson. Darrell Henderson's down here, Kenyon Drake's down here, a lot of backup running backs down here. So I think for the most part, we got the majority of running backs on the board that we like. Now, I understand that I'm lower on ETN than most people, so I'm probably not going to get him in a lot of my drafts. But in the 7th, 8th round, Leonard Fournette, Raheem Mostert, Damian Harris, you're probably going to get one of those guys to fall to you there. Let me just kind of scroll up and let's get back to some of these wide receivers. I think there is a little bit of a tier break here, so let's go ahead and pump in some quarterbacks that I believe are top 100 quarterbacks. Brady, Herbert, and Hurts. Brady, Herbert, and Hurts. QB, Thomas Brady. QB, Justin Herbert. QB, Jalen Hurts. Now, if Rodgers plays with the Packers, that's going to require its own, rankings adjustment. I do have him here at quarterback 10. I do think Tannehill and Stafford are probably my top quarterbacks here that we're going to finish up with. So let me just kind of pencil those guys in down here. And we'll put Rodgers here too. And with Rodgers, who knows what's going to happen? If you're drafting right now, I'd probably just avoid it. What was the name? Ryan Tannehill and Matthew Stafford. Okay, so we just have a few picks left here, 92 to 97. we're just going to kind of fill out who I think is the best of the available here. So Brandon Cooks, not a great team with Houston. I can see you wanting to swerve on that. Devonta Smith, Cole Beasley, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Marquis Brown. I am lower than a lot of these, people seem in their ADPs. You got Robert Tonyan here. Maybe we'll throw Robert Tonyan in here. I think even with Jordan Love, Robert Tonyan's still going to be very useful. So we got Tonyan in there. As far as running backs that need to make the top 100, Zach Moss, David Johnson, A.J. Dillon. No one's really moving the needle for me back here. These guys are all kind of backup players, so we'll wait on some of those guys. But as far as wide receivers, that should probably be off the board before pick 100. Let's go ahead and we'll get Brandon Cooks off the board. I think if you get him late, again, he's still a #1 wide receiver in a team that's going to suck, so they're going to throw the ball quite a bit. Let's go ahead and pencil in rookie Devonta Smith. Cole Beasley, guys, he's still going to be useful as a PPR slot machine. And then let's finish this up here. We only have 2 spots left. Maybe I move Tonyan out. Tonyan would just be about 100. I'm going to go ahead here and put wide receiver Henry Ruggs, who I'm kind of excited about with Las Vegas. I think they're going to try to get him the ball a little bit more this season. Jerry Jeudy, and then we'll finish here with Marquis Brown. So yeah, I'm a little bit lower on the Ravens pass catchers. That just makes me like Lamar Jackson the most. So if you had to get someone on the Ravens, it's Lamar or JK, and then we'll kind of wait and see what happens. But that's our top 100. And again, if you stayed to the end, that's awesome. Let me know in the comments that you made it this far. And I'm probably going to do this once a month. We'll take a look at this and add more things to it and retweak things. Kind of have another draft. But here's the recap. Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Ezekiel Elliott, Jonathan Taylor. Top 8 running backs, have no problem with those guys in the top 8 spots. You can start to get funky at the end of the first round, whether that's Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Travis Kelsey, Aaron Jones. And I guess the biggest takeaway from this draft that we just did here on the computer is it's really those first 4 rounds are going to set everything up for you. So we can nitpick as we get, farther down my lists, but for the most part, I think I got pretty accurate here with where things are going to be. So Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler, end of the first, early second. You have this awesome run of wide receivers: Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, AJ Brown, and DeAndre Hopkins. Then you can do whatever you want with Mixon, Jefferson, Thomas, Harris, Gibson, Akers. Go ahead and get your guy. But I feel pretty good about this top 30. Maybe this top 35 or so feels really good. You got the tight ends, you got the run on running backs, and then you got this massive list of receivers. Try to get 2 guys out of this list if you can. If you're sitting back here at the 36 and 37, so say you're the 12th overall pick, take those 2 running backs. Aaron Jones and Eckler here, or if Elliott falls or Chubb falls or someone falls, snag 2 running backs here, because at the 36 and the 37. Look at all these receivers that you get to choose from as your top 2 wide receivers. That feels pretty good to me. So take a wide receiver at the end of the 3rd, all throughout the 4th round. 5th round, I think, is primarily to either snag Kyle Pitts or TJ Hawkinson, or try to snag one of these awesome wide receiver 3s. I think I'm going to push down running back value in the 5th round and maybe start to think about some running backs in the 6th round here, whether that's James Conner or Chase Edmonds. Ronald Jones was still a top 30 back. James Robinson's there, Kareem Hunt, Antonio Brown starts the receiver run for us here in the 7th round. Antonio Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Curtis Samuel, Laviska Shenault, Mike Williams, Chase Claypool, Odell Beckham, and Kenny Galladay. If you can get, this is a list of receivers that I have a huge value on. If any of these guys fall to you in the 7th round, I think that's worth snagging them. I kind of have these guys all as wide receiver 3s this season. If you can get them as your 3rd or 4th receiver on the team, I think you're doing pretty well. And then as we move into the 7th round, Logan Thomas and Mark Andrews should be off the board right now. But my philosophy, I don't draft tight ends that high. I kind of wait until later. You can grab some backup running backs here. Think about Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, and Jalen Hurts back here. And then you got more wide receivers here. You're still getting potential wide receiver 1s, whether that's Cooks or Devonta Smith, Henry Ruggs, Marquis Brown, and then these quarterbacks down here. So that's going to do it for this crazy PPR top 100 video. if you liked it, let me know in the comments. It's my first time doing it. I think I'm gonna try to do it once a month going forward. So this is June. We'll do one in July and August, and we'll help you guys get ready for your upcoming seasons in fantasy football. So I want to thank you guys so much for your time. If you stayed to the end, let me know in the comments below. And I don't know. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you in the next video. Have a good night, morning, whatever you need. And cool. Peace.